You are listening to PowerScore's Law Practices podcast series. Today's topic is answering the question of what I can do with a law degree. On the program, we have Robert Boland, NYU professor, sports agent, and attorney, Caroline Dowd-Higgins, director of the Career and Professional Development Office at Indiana School of Law, and Robert Nelson, director of the American Bar Foundation. Graduating with a law degree can give a lot of opportunities to students who achieve this goal. In the past, most summer internships and jobs gave way to full-time positions after completing the third year in law school. But in the present economy and job market, a legal profession isn't as available. With large and small law firms not hiring as many associates as they used to, law students have had to go in different routes to pursue a legal career. However, some students can and do enter law school with the goal to pursue a career other than becoming an attorney. And though more students are working in the nonprofit sector or higher education, there is one job path that Robert Boland took many years after graduating from law school that combined his passions, experience, and degrees.
Right out of law school, like a lot of the young lawyers, I did something very unrelated to my purpose for going to law school. I ended up being an assistant district attorney in New York City. I didn't really have any great passion for prosecution. I did enjoy the litigation aspect. I did enjoy what I learned. I've never been anything but intellectually curious, but it really wasn't my cup of tea. I've tried a lot of cases. I worked for a trial judge as his law clerk for a while, but I was never as passionate about doing that, or I was never as passionate when I even found my way into the Attorney General's office in New York or found my way into a big law firm doing antitrust work. I was never as passionate about any of those works unless it was in sports, and sports always was the deciding factor for me. So I was very fortunate while I was working at a big firm in New York. I was very fortunate to find a guy who was buying out of his baseball practice. This man's name was Joel Walter. He was a very successful attorney. He had founded a firm called ACES, Athletes Careers Enhanced and Secured, which had about 100 Major League Baseball clients. The most famous of his clients today is probably David Wright of the New York Mets, but they have 100 major leaguers. They do incredibly well. I formed a new company with Joel, Global Athletic Management Enterprises, the acronym GAME, and began recruiting players in professional football and a variety of Olympic sports. Having done about 100 or 150 sports contracts of various levels for good clients and bad clients, another unique opportunity come my way. And I had just enough clients to be very credible at the time, and I had too few clients that it would be a massive pay cut. But when New York University began to launch their program in sports business and sports management and launched their master's program, I had been an adjunct professor in their undergraduate program for a year or two. When they launched their master's in sports management, I went all in, and I became a full-time professor in addition to my work as a lawyer and representing players. I've since, as I've kind of worked as a professor for the last 7 or 8 years, I've kind of transitioned a little bit away from representing players in the traditional construct to wanting to represent coaches. On some level, they're just more my age now, and they also have jobs, so they're less demanding on some level. But I get to have the best of both worlds. I get to teach, I get to opine on things that are out there, and I get to practice occasionally.
And Caroline Dowd-Higgins of Indiana School of Law says that her office works with students to find their dream jobs, just like Robert had.
The opportunities are endless. A lot of people go in traditional directions and they practice law. We see a lot of other people who want to use the legal skill set, which is foundations in research, writing, analysis, and oral advocacy, to name a few. And they use that skill set in a variety of different sectors, whether it's in the corporate business arena, the nonprofit sector, or politics. But again, the possibilities are endless. So our goal is to work with students one-on-one and help them figure out what their strengths are so we can customize a career path that matches their interests and their needs.
Robert Nelson of the American Bar Foundation agrees. There are a lot of options for someone with a law degree.
They can do lots of different things. Obviously, they can practice law, and that's what majority of people do, but that can mean many different things, from serving individual clients or working in government, as a prosecutor or a public defender, or in lots of different regulatory agencies. People who do not go into the practice of law still can benefit from having a law degree, and there are a lot of people working in business who have law degrees. Either they have gotten a law degree and then go into maybe corporate law practice and decide they are actually more interested in doing the deals and being the business person than in practicing law. And so that's not all that uncommon. And there's also quite a few people who are already in business who feel like they should pick up a law degree so they better understand what they're doing and can expand the range of things they do. There's just lots of different ways you can use a law degree.
Robert also says that after the JD study that the American Bar Foundation released, they surprisingly found that though lawyers tend to work long hours, the majority of them are satisfied with their decision to get a law degree.
This is something that is a bit of a surprise in a way. I mean, sometimes you hear a lot of anecdotes talking to people about how they're not happy with the practice of law, how the law has changed. So what we have found when we do more systematic research that has a better response rate, instead of just hearing from people who are dissatisfied, that most people are quite happy with their decision to become a lawyer. Now that isn't necessarily the same thing as being happy with their particular job, because they might still not feel all that attached to what they're currently doing, but they're still happy that they have gotten a law degree and have the set of career opportunities that a law degree gives them. So in other studies in which there's been careful sampling done, we see sort of similar patterns of satisfaction. That most people are quite satisfied with their decision to become a lawyer, but it's something that we have to keep our eye on. Whether or not, as the professional workplace changes, whether we'll continue to see those high levels of satisfaction. I actually think we will. I think most people are pretty rational about their choice of a legal education.
And with job satisfaction comes the ability to be happy in both your personal and professional lives. Caroline Dowd-Higgins has found that this generation finds a balance between their personal and professional lives to be extremely important.
Well, certainly the economy has played a role in the job market right now. Years ago, there was a flush job market with a lot of opportunities in law firms, and we have a new normal in the career world right now. Firms are tightening that proverbial belt. Business is not booming like it used to be, although we do expect it to come back. They're not hiring as much as they have past. So they're scrutinizing their candidates, and it's more competitive. That is also encouraging students to look for other opportunities. And I also see students coming into law school with a real focus from day one on work-life balance. That value is very important to this particular generation. And that's great. That's something that they're aware of right off the bat. They're changing the landscape of the work environment. But since they know that, we can also very clearly tell them that a large corporate law firm is not the place for them, because work-life balance doesn't happen in that kind of scenario.
Robert Nelson has seen the same trend and also sees career differences between men and women JD holders.
We do see some differences between men and women, so that women are more likely to work part-time or take a pause in their career. It's still most women who have law degrees continue to have full-time jobs, but almost all of the men do, and so that's one thing that I guess people should just be aware of. But we do see that young professionals are going ahead and having families and having kids, and so they're finding one way or another to blend their personal life with their professional career.
But when you are deciding what type of career to consider, there are a lot of things you can do to reach that goal. Robert Boland says that if you want to be a sports agent, there are a variety of steps you can take to develop a lucrative career. But if you have other career goals in mind, Robert has advice for anyone hoping to be successful.
One of the things that I found in my own search, it's very hard in any field to start. And this field particularly has high barriers to entry. So don't be discouraged. And the other nice thing that I think anybody who has a JD should remember is that the JD and the experience that it gives you is a tremendous one and a varied one. So don't be afraid if you have to practice early in your career, because the skills you learn there will be invaluable to you later. Negotiating with criminal defendants and with judges have certainly helped me negotiating with athletic directors and university presidents and professional teams. They're certainly not any different in that regard. And I think that it's a very important thing to get that 5 years of experience, because you really only can build from that point. It's like the JD is a starting point on a road and a journey, and a lot of people when they graduate look at it as a destination. So don't do that. Work to get that 5 years experience. Know that you have to endure it a little bit, and then you have to grind in the corners and kick out your shot like they do in hockey to set up a clean shot. And if you're very good and very talented, it might not take 5 years to get that experience. It may only take 3, but very rarely can you get it in 3 months. So it will be difficult, but don't be afraid to practice, and don't be afraid to earn your income, your primary source of income or livelihood, somewhere else, and pursue your passion in sports on a voluntary basis or an interim basis, or on some level where you're contributing and people are having a chance to see you. The one bad part about sports, because so many people want to be in the field, we often can demand that people work for nothing at first. So if you can do that while you're in school, while you're in law school with internships or opportunities outside of your clerkships, that's a great way to do it. If you can do it with graduate assistantships, with athletic departments in the school you're at, or just post that, or in your involvement in sports, I really highly recommend it. So it is difficult, but it isn't impossible. More people have traveled that road than we know. It's just that the barrier to entry is fairly high.
And if being a sports agent isn't something that interests you, Caroline Dowd-Higgins says over the past few years she has seen a rise in a number of different legal career options.
We have a lot of students who got very excited about the most recent presidential election, and that has really spurred interest in politics. So we've got a lot of students who want to use their law degree and delve into politics, not necessarily as a political candidate as such, but they want to be on the team, or they want to be implementing policy, or they're really excited about the campaign. So we've seen a trend in students who perhaps worked on one of the 2 presidential campaigns during the last election cycle, and they've got the political bug. So it's really interesting to see how that's playing out in the job market this coming year. Some more interesting things, we've seen people go off to work in places like MTV. They've worked in rights and royalty divisions. Sony Music, for example, using their law degree to develop contracts for recording and performing artists. Those are some of the off-the-beaten-path opportunities that we've seen lately, which are fascinating ways to use your law degree.
What to do with a JD isn't always the easiest question to answer. From working in a private firm, for the government, or something completely different, there are a lot of options for students who are pursuing a legal career. And once you find out what you're looking for, success can be just around the corner. Thank you for listening to PowerScore's podcast series. If you want more information on PowerScore's podcasts or services, please visit PowerScore.com, or you can call 1-800-545-1750.